artist, and I've been teaching for over 50 years, teaching children and teaching adults, and I really enjoy the teaching. And I paint everything that I see. If you're wondering where I get my inspiration, we travel. We travel all over the world. Also, I come from New York, and New York is an interesting place to paint. It's very colorful. Buildings, the traffic, the cabs, the people. And now, get your palette, get your brushes, and let's get started. Hi, my name is Judy Wengrovitz. I live in Fairfax County, Virginia. I used to live in New York. And so today, from the painter's palette, I'm going to do a painting of New York. And look closely, because I'm going to try some different techniques. I'm going to hold up a photograph that I took, and I'm going to try and do some of this photograph today. After I did a sketch on my paper, I used my masking fluid, which I put on the paper so that spots would remain white or another color. If you see the yellow, I even put masking fluid over the yellow. In just a moment, I will show you how I did that. I'm going to start in painting the sky, and this is the sky behind all these buildings. I'm using a brush that is square, and that helps me fit in, especially with all the buildings. I have to be careful when I paint upright, because I do get a lot of drips. And here's a drip coming here, and I'm going to take a piece of paper towel here and lift off that drip. Okay, now I'm going to try and paint the entire top of this painting. Especially now, I have used some masking fluid to mask off some white areas on the top of this painting. The colors that I'm using now are my favorite colors, it seems like. Is ultramarine blue, and burnt sienna, and I want to get it really dark. Mixing the colors here, and I'm going to take a little purple. As you can see, you see some little dots coming out underneath this dark paint. Those are masking fluid, and I will show you in a few minutes how I put the masking fluid on. I'd like to get this a little darker. I added another color this time, and that's indigo. This time, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to blot my brush here, and I'm going to take off some color. I added some more color here so you can see that I'm getting darker. And let's go ahead and maybe still adding the same two colors, the ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and I'm adding 4 colors here. It's a little indigo and a little purple. When you see me removing some of the masking fluid, then you will see some of the highlights in this painting. I have some lettering here. This lettering was painted yellow, and on top of the yellow, I put some masking fluid. So when I remove the masking fluid, you will see yellow lettering. Get it a little bit more dark so that the sky would show out. And my paint is beginning to dry, which is good because that's exactly what I wanted to do. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you how I put that masking fluid on my painting. At this point, I think I probably should fill in this little spot here before I try to show you about putting the masking fluid on. Actually, I'm going to not only do the top part of the buildings, but I'm going to do some of the ground over here. And this time I'm going to wet this area. Although my photograph looks pretty dark, I'm going to add some color so that the photograph is not as dark. Notice I'm working on a wet surface now, so the paint is a little bit moist. So I have a drop, and I'm going to wipe it off here. Watch me lift it off. And let's go ahead and, this is crimson, alizarin crimson. And I'm going to go ahead and make it darker. Whoops. I have my paper stapled. This is watercolor paper. And when I wet watercolor paper, it has a tendency to ripple. So therefore, I staple the paper all across the bottom, and when it dries, it will dry flat. Now let's go ahead and show you a little bit about the masking fluid. So I'm going to take, I have an extra piece in here. All right. Before I came here, I used some of this masking fluid, and I put it on with various things. But I do want to tell you a little bit about this masking fluid. When it dries in the bottle, you can't open the bottle. So you have to be careful the way you save some of this. What I did to save it was to put it in this little film canister, which I will now open. Hopefully. Okay, it's in this film canister. All right, now here's some of the things that I use to apply the masking fluid. All right, one of them is a bamboo pen, which actually has two ends to it, one a little thicker, so. And that will come out. It's a little difficult to do this upright, but I think I can get something on here. Whoops. You saw exactly what happens when it dries. All right, that's one thing that I use to put it on with. And here is something else which I really like. Let's see what happens here. This one is rubber, so it really goes on a little nicer. This is not a brush. This is it's soft, and it's made out of some kind of rubber so that it gives way. Another thing now I use is a brush. And here's where the problems can happen if you're not careful. Here's a piece of soap over here, and when I wet my brush, it protects it from the masking fluid so the brush doesn't get hard. So I'm going to put this down for a minute and soap up the brush. Now I'm going to dip it into my masking fluid, and now I've got to wash out the brush, and here's where the problem can happen. If I wash out the brush like this, some of the masking fluid goes back in that water, and if you use a good brush, it can get on your good brush, and then it would be hard to remove. So I'm gonna, right now I washed it in two containers of water, so it's pretty clean. Now let's see what I'm gonna do with this. In this particular one, I put a colored stripe down, and then I put my masking solution right over the color, and see what happens. This is a special eraser, and it's made to erase masking fluid. I'm not going to touch the ones down here because they're too wet, but I am going to touch the ones over here. Actually, I want to do something here too. that masking solution is dry. And when I put the paint over it like this is what happens. Okay, this is the eraser, and I'm going to hopefully you will see on my larger painting some of the dots that I put or lines, and they will erase. Let's try erasing this and see what happens. What I did here was put on some red first, put masking fluid on the dried paint, and now when I take off this, and this works very, very nice. And now let's look at the large painting and see what it does on that painting. Okay, here we go. I'm going to take off some of the masking. Well, I better wait. I'm going to paint down here because right now this is pretty wet, and if I start erasing here, it's liable to tear the paper. I'm going to work with my photograph now because this is pretty complicated, this subject. And so I decided to go ahead and use the photograph. So let's go ahead and we have a little car here. I'm using a yellow, and I don't know the name of this yellow because I have so many yellows that this is a little orange in this yellow too. This is a mixture of the orange, and I really want this, I want this painting to really be colorful. Actually, before I take off the masking solution, I might go back over this again and make it a little darker. I'm anxious to take off that masking solution. I really can't wait to see what it looks like, but I don't want to do it yet. Actually, I'm using a different kind of brush. I used a square brush before, and this brush has a point to it. It has a very nice point, so I can go ahead and go around some of the things. Okay, now let's figure out what color shall I make these dark figures. Okay, I have a dark here, sort of a grayish color. Using my favorite color again. I let it run because it ran very nicely for me. So now I'm making this figure dark. Before this dries, I'm going to lift off I'm lifting off some of the color so we can see some of the figure. I'm going to do the second figure. These are figures in silhouette. I hope to put some color behind them. This is pretty much an underpainting because I'm going to do a lot more to this. I dried off my brush, so I'm going to lift off some of this paint. I might lift off some more later on. I won't take off all the figures because I don't want to take that much time, but this figure is going to be a little darker. Okay, let's go ahead and outline some of these things here. The paint, the second layer of the painting has gotten much darker, which I like. I'm going to show you something else. I could show it to you right now. I took a little bit of this is designer's gouache. And what I'm going to do is to outline some of this. I've used my masking solution here. This time I'm going to use white paint. In fact, I might use white paint and some yellow. So if you don't have your masking solution, you could use white paint like this. I mixed the white paint with a little yellow. This is wet, so it's running a little bit. Let's take another color here. Let's take a little red. Let's get some of this color down here. This time, instead of the white paint, let's see if this works. Not quite as distinct as the one with the white paint. It does show a little bit, but let's put a little white paint in it. If you notice, my painting is beginning to look slightly different than the photograph. And I'm enjoying doing this because I like to put in some of the dark. Let's put a little color here. This dark color is darker because it has a little indigo. And indigo is a dark blue, sort of a bluish black color. Now let's put a little purple in too. Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm going to get some more color over here. That color is cerulean blue. Well, let's get some more dark color here. I actually mixed 4 colors here. I want to be able to take some of this masking solution up so you can see what it looks like. I mixed 4 colors. Okay. I'm going to put some really different colors behind these figures to make it colorful. This came out a little thick because I had some white paint in here by accident. It's a pretty color. There's a little cadmium orange. Yeah, that's pretty thick. Let's go over it with maybe a little white here. I'm still feeling this here to see if I could remove it. I can remove part of this, but part of this, well, let's just take off part of this so you can see. Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed that we don't take off the paper too. couldn't wait to take this off. Actually, yeah, well, maybe I could take off this too. I have to straighten some of these lines out. I love to do this. This is fun. Some of this masking fluid has gotten really thick, so I could pull it off with my hands. Okay, let's do a few more things. Oh, let me use some white paint at this point. This red, it's bothered me, so I'm going to get rid of a little bit of. Actually, I have a combination here of white paint and masking fluid removed. Well, it doesn't look like this, but I don't think it's too bad, actually. I wanted it to be more colorful than to have quite as much black in there. I haven't finished these colors yet here, so let me go ahead and do a few more figures. Actually, this has surprised me, this painting, because it came out differently than I thought it would. Let's get these letters off here. The small figures give a sense of perspective. Here comes some white paint again. It's not too bad. This is my favorite part, is taking off this masking solution, and I'm feeling where it is because I have quite a bit on here. Well, they all came out different colors, but I seem to like it actually. Every time I put my brush in my paint, I come up with a different shade of blue. I actually have to take this back to my studio because there's a lot of things that I still have to do. I should be standing up and looking at this too, but I'm not. So when I get back to my studio, I will put it at the end of a room and study it and see what else. I'm happy with the color I put on the sidewalk beneath the people, and I like it the way it fades away. What it looks like, but I want to finish this one first. Well, it's a lot more colorful than I thought it was going to be, and actually, I seem to like it, much to my surprise. I have a few little figures in here that are a little different color. I'd like to invite you into my studio now to watch me add a few more details to my painting. I'm going to add some color. adding a little bit more color. And put a little squiggle of color here. I'm making this up so you can think of whatever it is. Let's get some color behind these figures. I might add some more figures here. I don't know right now. I'm just adding some color. Let's see. Oh, I've got to make it a little lighter. And the reason this brush is different is because it has a square tip. Okay, maybe this brush that I'm using now, as I read the label, it's called Flat Shader. Just want to repeat the yellow, so I'm going to repeat it another place. Let's go ahead. The more color I add, the more I like the color, breaking that area up. Another spot over here. I'm glad I had the opportunity to take you into my studio and just show you how I'm filling in some things that I didn't have before. As I say, I'm using my imagination. I'm putting squares and rectangles just to add some color. I guess I could use a little orange over it anyhow. I believe there's some masking fluid over there, but I won't know until I take it off. Let's get some windows in here. Just putting a little color here to indicate another little car coming in here. Don't forget, this is my eraser that takes off my masking. Okay, let's see if there's any spots here. There's a big spot here. Oh, I forgot the wheels. Let me see. I think you are now seeing pretty much the end of the painting. This is about what I'd like you to see. Thanks for coming to my studio. It's not very often that I invite people to my studio to see me add more details to my painting. So another thing you could do, if you would like, you can look up my webpage, judyswatercolors.com, and that will show you more subject matter that I do.